Welcome to the Libraries Connecting Texas E-Rate webinar for October. We are glad that you are watching, and we have Brandy Krubaugh and Kyle Lewis in the Texas and North Carolina offices, and I am in the Louisiana office of E-Rate Central. So today we're going to talk about the LCT current funding. We're going to talk about contracts and legally binding agreements, which is the next step in the Form 470 process after the responses have come in for your Form 470. I'm going to talk a little bit about profile updates, and then Kyle is going to talk about next steps. And we've got some breaking news from USAC, so Kyle is going to be the person who's going to talk about that breaking news. So Libraries Connecting Texas Libraries have been funded $1.4 million. That's up from the last LCT meeting that we've had. We've got more dispersed, which is 2.3 million of the 3.9 million that has been dispersed to libraries in the LCT program since 2018. We've got 47 libraries in groups 1 and 2 that have 90% or more disbursement for the funding year 2019. That means that 90% of the funds that they were funded has been dispersed to the libraries. 13 libraries still have not invoiced USAC for their 2019 discounts, and that's a really important thing to pay attention to. We're reaching out to libraries who haven't filed their bears yet for 2019, and it's really important to respond to those emails as soon as possible so that we can help you get the money. It's a very complicated program, and you're filing lots of forms and going through a process to get the funds. It's really important that you actually get them. You need to get paid for all of the work that you're doing. So 21 funded 2020 applications are missing a certified Form 486. That means that those libraries haven't let USAC know that they're ready to start getting paid for their discounts. Again, no point in going through all of this work without getting paid for it. And many of the libraries are actually asking service providers to discount bills. If you haven't filed the Form 486, most service providers are not going to start discounting your bills. So if you're not sure if you've filed the Form 486, do reach out to us and ask, because we are reaching out and reminding you as we go through our reports every week, and notice that you're still on the list. So right now in the competitive bidding process, those libraries who don't have multi-year contracts that cover the complete funding year of July 2021 to June 2022 are going through a competitive bidding process right now. That means you're filing a Form 470 and accepting responses from service providers. And the last time we met and discussed, we talked about the evaluation process. That means service providers have provided bids to you, and then you're going through those bids and evaluating them in an evaluation matrix. The next step in that process is, once you've determined the most cost-effective service, then you've chosen the service provider and you need to enter into a legally binding agreement. That means either you're going to issue an award letter that says that you want to have month-to-month services, or you're signing a contract for 1 year or more years. If you sign a multi-year contract, then you can continue to use that Form 470 that you filed for the life of that contract. So if you file a Form 470 now and you sign a 3-year contract, then you use that same 470 for 3 years and then move on and file another Form 470 when your contract is expiring. So I'm going to give it to Brandy now, and she's going to talk about legally binding agreements. Brandy?
Hi, everyone. So we've talked a little bit about, as Caroline said, the 470 process, competitive bidding, and doing your evaluations. But after that, the next thing is to get your contracts together for your awarded providers or legally binding agreements. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. You would want to request a contract as soon as you have awarded the vendor and notified them that they are the winning vendor. You would request that contract agreement. Sometimes it can take a little bit to get those back, so you'd want to do that as soon as possible. You want to know what you need to do in order to make that contract valid, and that would be thinking about, do you have to have it approved by your city council? If so, when do you need to get that on the agenda so that they can discuss and approve it? Also, who has the authority to sign your contracts? Is that you, or does somebody else, like with the city, need to sign those agreements? That's things that you need to know when going through this contract process. So here we're going to talk about legally binding agreements a little bit. In the E-rate modernization order, the FCC eased the requirements for signing contracts. And what that means is, in some cases, you won't have to have the signed contract for the purpose of filing the 471. If you can't get a signature on a contract prior to certifying your form, there are other things that you can do. So here we take a little snippet from the modernization order. So a bid for services that includes all material terms and conditions provided in response to an FCC Form 470 would be sufficient evidence of an offer, and an email from the applicant telling the service provider that the bid was selected would suffice as this evidence. Another option would be a contract award letter. You would want to make sure that this includes the material terms and conditions. The dates of service would need to be listed. It would need to be clear exactly what's being covered in that agreement. And you would also want to include verbiage like it's contingent on your city council's approval. Also, contingency on E-rate funding is really important. Obviously, a signed contract is going to be the best option for your legally binding agreement, but it's good to know that we have other options available to us if that can't happen. On this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about creating your contract record in Epic. This is something that you'll need to do before adding that contract to your Form 471. Once you get to that step, if you haven't created this contract record, you won't be able to add it. So once this document is signed, you'll need to create that contract record. And to do this, you'll go to your landing page, select your library's name, and then click on Contracts. After you've clicked on Contracts, you will click on Manage Contracts at the top of your page and select Add a New Contract. There's going to be some questions that are going to come up when creating this contract. And on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what those questions are. But here it shows you the kind of the steps in the process on getting that contract created. First thing you're going to do is create a nickname for your contract agreement, and we recommend utilizing the funding year, the library's name, and the service name for that contract agreement. If there is a contract number listed, you would want to put that in the open field for that information. You can also upload a copy of your contract, but this is not a requirement. You'll need to have your Form 470 handy so that you can enter your 470 number, or you can do a search for it and select the correct 470. You'll next need to enter how many bids you received for the services you requested, enter the service provider identification number, which a lot of times you'll see on the bid response from the service provider. You'll enter the contract dates that you're entering into for that service, and then you will continue through all pages and click Submit.
Thanks, Brandy. We're going to move on to entity profile updates. Of course, if you need assistance with entering your contract information, once you've determined who your service provider is and signed your contract or entered into another legally binding agreement, we can assist you with putting that contract record in if you run into any issues. And if you are filing a Form 470, if you do that now, hopefully you'll have enough time so that you will have a legally binding agreement contract in place if you plan on signing one before the window opens in January. So that's one of the reasons why we suggest that you start the process now, because you have to wait a minimum of 28 days, and we suggest longer than that so that you have plenty of time to accept the responses and answer any questions from service providers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about profile updates. One of the things that happened this week was that entity profiles are now unlocked. It happened on Monday. Entity profiles are unlocked and you can update information. So if you have any changes to make in your profile, now is the time for you to do that. So if you have any new branches, if you have been expanding one of your locations with special construction or a construction that expands the square footage of the library, you'll want to update your profile, because the square footage is how your library's Category 2 budget is determined. So make sure that you check your entity profile and make sure that everything in it is correct. So one of the things that, and of course, I have a link here to the October 16th USAC news brief, in which there was some information from USAC that on how to what you need to do in considering updating your profile. So right now, I am going to stop sharing my screen for a second, because I am going to open the training profile, the training site for USAC, and I am going to show you how to update your profiles. Okay, so Brandy and Kyle, can you see my screen now? Okay, good. All right, so I am going to show you how to update your profile. So right now, the screen that you're looking at is the first screen of the training site, and I have a login for an independent library that I'm going to use. It's a very similar process for library systems. Of course, you're going to probably need to make sure that your branches have correct information in your profile. But I'm going to show how an independent library can update their profile. And we have a lot of independent libraries or one branch libraries in this program. So if you do run into any issues or have any questions, you can always give us a call and we can help you with that. So the library here is Independent Library 10131. That's a really interesting name, isn't it? So as you see, the profile has all the information in here, like the contact information for the library. It has the account administrator's name in here, has some applicant information, square footage. Depending on where the library is, it's going to tell whether or not that library is a rural or urban library. I do recommend that you check out that news brief that I linked in the previous slide, because it goes into the rural and urban designations that assist you with determining your discount. So I'm sorry, not your discount, but yeah, your discount So the library's discount is actually based on the school district where the library is located. And so if the school district, if you see here, right here, school districts, right now this library is currently not associated with a school district. So that means that this library is not going to have a discount. So you do want to make sure that when you're updating your profile that the school district is associated with your library is the correct school district. In some cases, we've discovered that when a library first logs into Epic for the first time, that the wrong school district is associated with the library. So double check that information. Of course, you're going to have an FCC registration number to be able to file. And here is where the square footage is located. So if you double check your square footage for your library, make sure that's correct. I do know that when USAC reviews applications, they will check the IMLS database to see what the current information is. So if you do change the information about the square footage, make sure you have documentation to back that square footage up. For instance, if you had a big construction project and the IMLS database isn't updated yet, you're going to want to make sure that you have some plans or some sort of documentation, maybe board meeting minutes that show the updated square footage of that library so that you can validate that. Otherwise, you may have to get the state library to help you. Library information, this is where you would, if you have a special designation of the library, this is where you would check that. For instance, if it's a new construction library, maybe you're still building a library branch or something like that. This is what you would check. Or if it's the main branch, I'm going to say this is the main branch, but it's, this is an independent library, so it's actually not even, there's no branches. If the phone number is not correct, you want to make sure that the phone number is correct, and the same thing with the email address. In many cases, for instance, you may want a different email address in here than what you're using to log in as the account administrator. So if you want to be using a different email address for people to contact you, you want to make sure that you put the correct email address here, and you may want to put your web address in here. If you don't know whether you're urban or rural, you can often find the latitude and longitude of your library by using Google, and it will look up the urban or rural status of your library. It's possible that your library will not have the same urban or rural status as the school district in which you're located, which kind of makes things interesting. But you can, as I said, enter the latitude and longitude addresses in here, and it will determine whether or not you're urban or rural. Once you have finished making any updates that you need to make, you just hit submit. And it's going, in this case, because I'm using the training site, I'm just going to cancel my changes because I've tried to do this before, and you have to use a special school district. So I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to go ahead and click out of it. So this is just a little bit of a demonstration of how to update your profile. If you run into any questions or have any problems updating your profile, you can always reach out to us and we can assist you. Now let me get back to the slides. Okay. Now I'm going to hand it over to Kyle, and he's going to talk about next steps, including the new breaking news. Kyle?
Hi, everyone. So we are just going to go over some next steps and action items that you may need to take care of if you have not already done so. First of all, let's discuss the funding year 2021 Form 470. We have reached out to a number of you on the need to file the funding year 2021 Form 470. As part of those emails and those discussions, we've gone over the Form 470 preparation checklist. I would just ask that you take a few minutes to go over this. It will help you in preparing for the coming filing year and make sure that you have your profile prepared and you'll be ready to file your Form 470. Part of that is going to be the service specification sheet. We've gone over this a couple times, but if you have any questions about this or any of the items on it, like the internet bandwidth, you can speak to us. Regarding the internet bandwidth, you may need to check your billing or to ask your service provider to be certain what that is, because that will be a baseline for services that you request for this funding year. And once you have those prepared, please register for a Come File With Us webinar. We're having one on Wednesday, October 28th at 1 p.m. Central Time, and one on Tuesday, November 3rd at 10 a.m. Central Time. And that brings us to the next item, which is, I believe, the breaking news that Caroline mentioned. USAC, today they came out with a news brief that includes a schedule of and a link for webinar registration on a number of webinars on useful information pertaining to E-rate and USAC. So if you'd like to learn more about the E-rate program or the E-rate Productivity Center or Category 2 budgets, or under the Universal Service Administrative Company's umbrella there, this would be a good opportunity to register for that and participate in those webinars. If you have any trouble finding those, they should be on the USAC website. Otherwise, reach out to us and we can direct you to that link as well. So additionally, if you are expecting service upgrades in this funding year that we're in currently, make sure to check and double check that the upgrade happened. You don't want to get months out and then find out that the upgrade to your bandwidth had not happened. Part of this is going to be checking your bills each month to confirm that it's consistent with that upgrade. And if you switch service providers, make sure that you have turned the old service off when that new service switched over, just so you don't have the two services in place at the same time. And if you filed for E-rate for funding year 2019 and still need to file a billed entity applicant reimbursement, the BEAR, this is what Caroline was discussing earlier regarding libraries not having filed for their reimbursement yet. If you have not received your discount funding, you should file one as soon as possible and make sure that you get your funding. Like she said, there's no point to all of this unless you are able to get your funding. So if you have any questions about whether you need to file a BEAR or you are uncertain on how to file a BEAR, please reach out to us and we can help direct you towards doing that. And I believe that brings us to just a deadline or a goal for the funding year 2021 470. Our goal for those 470s is to have them filed by Thanksgiving, which is November 26th. I don't believe we're having a monthly webinar next month. So this will be the last one we have before this goal. So please take this call to action as a request that you please file those, and please work with us to make sure that you're able to get those filed before that date.
Thank you, Kyle. Just a few other things. If you check your email, if you've been filing applications if you filed one last year or if you filed one the year before, you should have gotten an email from USAC with a news brief, a special edition news brief, and that had the information about the training that's coming up in early November. It starts, the kickoff is November 4th. So we definitely recommend that you sign up for at least the kickoff. And there are quite a few beginners webinars that I think many of you, even people who maybe have been filing for a couple of years, may want to attend one of the beginner webinars because it has some great information about Category 2 budgets and profiles and filing forms. So do consider your schedule and see if that works for you. I also believe they're recording them, so if for some reason you're not going to be able to make one of those, you can still sign up for it and you should be able to have access to the recordings. We're going to be putting some information in our newsletter next week, but just in case you get a chance to watch this, we wanted to make sure you are aware of it and that you sign up. We've been told that they have plenty of room, so we don't think it's going to fill up, but just in case, you might want to go ahead and sign up. As Kyle said, we are not going to be having another LCT webinar until December, so do file your Form 470 if you need to do that. And we're hoping that the next webinar, we're going to say everyone filed. All 67 libraries filed their Forms 470, and we're going to have a celebration. Right now, 30% of those libraries who needed to file a 470 have done so. So we're waiting for the rest of you to move forward. We're going to be providing this recording on YouTube, and we'll be sending the link out soon. So thank you so much for attending our webinar, and have a great weekend.